So when you need support for decision making, who do you go to or what do you do? Yes,
Okay,
Monica.
so I have a mentor that has been putting up with me for decades. He's an accountant. He sees me like a daughter, the daughter he never had. And so I will bounce things off of him. I also have two brothers, one who's painfully logical. I mean, very emotional, but very much an introvert. And I can go to him. But the other piece is I have another brother who's a lot like me, extroverted, warm, fuzzy, but also highly analytical. And I will bounce things off of him. And it becomes, for me, my brothers know me like the back of their hands. So they're able to sort of hold up that mirror, which is what I'm looking for. Have you thought of this? What is this going to look like? Have you thought this through? And sometimes I have. And sometimes it's, why are you hesitating? Go do. But I need that safe space to actually hear that I'm thinking about this clearly. I mean, I guess maybe it's because I've made mistakes in the past and I've jumped too quickly or I haven't taken advantage. So there's a question of doubting myself. That's really what it boils down to. Do I doubt myself or do I trust myself?
Good point. And Tristan?
I mean, wow, to make this a short subject, I think first and foremost, I think there should be like an immediate question, like this is a big hierarchy because at its core, this will be exhausting if you rely on emotions or dopamine. You really need to objectify it and not subjectify it. Subjectivity is very expensive, but it feels cheap in the moment. It feels like it's easy because it happens naturally and there's less control. You know, you don't need to think about where the bathroom is to go there. If you had to think about it every time, you'd be less likely to go to the bathroom quickly. You might hold it a little longer. It's true. So is this a one-way decision or a two-way decision? If I can revert this decision, I am very quick to let's just move forward, grab data and change our minds quickly. Like if it's already gotten to the table of us arguing, then it's hit enough snuff to like, let's move forward because there's obviously an argument to move forward. So if it's two-way, let's not even think about it. Why don't we just find out if we're right or wrong? Someone thinks we're right. Someone thinks we're wrong. Let's give the person the chance who actually thinks they're right to be wrong. I'm a very big person on check. What about one-way decisions, which most things actually do feel like, which is why you have to check. Most things feel like they're going to be infinite. It could just be for now. I need to know what the copy is on this page. I could change it tomorrow or I can change it in 30 days. But when you immediately think about that, it feels like it's a permanent decision. So questioning that. And then secondarily, depending on what it is, I really, really like to put weights and measures to a lot of things. If I'm going to make a decision, I like to feel on different aspects of it. And at its core, if I'm doing it alone or with another person, I will ICE. ICE is an acronym. I got it from a person at Facebook. Normally, most ideas are objectives or goals or strategies or some form of implementation, even if it's like what type of marketing. ICE stands for, impact, cost, and effort. There we go, effort. Very quickly, if it was successful, how much of an impact would it be in its underlying goal? So right there, you've got to think about what you said in a very interesting way to even get yourself there. And you do a lot of these measurements considering what the answer is which is what I like. And then the cost. It's going to either cost effort or time in some level, like attention, not so much effort, but it's going to cost that. So, we want to even spend that in it. If the impact's low and the time of attention's high, that might disqualify it altogether. Well, and I know effort sounds weird, but it can cost a lot of time and be a lot of work. It can be a little bit of work and still take a lot of time. So like if I'm not interested in it, it's going to take more effort. And if I don't have someone who's also interested in it, the effort's very high. But if I know someone who's going to take it on and maybe the cost is even a little high because there's tools we need or whatever, if the impact justifies it, then we move forward. But we normally have a couple ideas on the table. We're not deciding if we're going forward with this. It's like, which way should we go? Well, if you do that with each one, and again, I'll ICE my idea and I'll have two people ICE it and then we'll ICE their idea. And by the end, honestly, those weird meta discussions, you almost come to like what the obvious conclusion is of what we should test first. And you normally know what's second and third. So for 20 minutes, it will normally at least give you so much information that to me, it becomes evident. I still went way longer than I wanted. I should really figure out how to shorten that. And
I don't think you can. I think you hit it perfectly. It's fine. We got it.
Thank you, Monica. I appreciate that. I want high comprehension, but there's nuance there.
Well, it's great because it came to me. So you have ICE with a couple people that can help you think through things to then come up with the answer to the real ICE question. Right? So,
You're icing everything, and I think that's great. I'm going to use that phrase, and people are going to look at me and go, "Wait, what is this? Like, the mob or whatever?" But no, it's but, it's a framework, and it's a framework that makes sense. It's a logical construct. So, what's the impact? What's the cost? And what's the effectiveness? What's the effect to what we're trying to get to?
Yes. And if you go with your idea first and you're ultra critical against your own idea, it will allow, because what makes it magic is you hear how people form their opinion on their idea, and that's where the weight is, because they're actually telling you what they think is going to be affected. You might not agree with the outcome, but allowing people like, I think this because of this. The what they think it's interesting, but the because of is where you really like, oh, there's so many black holes that we didn't realize, and amazing ideas come from it. So if you get any great feedback, I always want to hear about it, because it's been revolutionary for saving me dopamine and running very fast with ideas.
Yeah, anything that saves dopamine to where you want it to go as opposed to wasting it along the way.
Yeah. No arguing either. No arguing. Everyone kind of agrees on everyone's assessment, and then it's like, well, yeah, obviously this is the least amount of work and the most interesting thing, and everyone feels heard, so no one's against an idea that doesn't get taken. It has a lot of things that happen that I wasn't really realizing. Now I'm crossing.
So, Anik, you had a comment that you'd like to make? Or you're on mute.
Yes. So of course, that assessment of return on investment is absolutely necessary. I make that assessment before I decide if a decision even needs to be made. I'm autistic, so change only when it's actually going to benefit me, relevant to the amount of effort I'm going to have to put in. So the setup is short-term pain, but the not changing can mean long-term pain. So that calculation also, so one thing that I've noticed, and this applies even to Tristan's parameters, unless it's always the same people that you bring in, is sometimes the people you choose to reach out to for support, if you stop and ask yourself, like, why this person, you'll realize that you already know what you want to hear, right? Just because this is the person I'm talking. I remember laughing at a friend of mine because he was like, I called you so that you would do this for me. And I was like, no. You called me because you needed a reality check. I would never help you with that. And he was like, you're right, because we have that relationship, right? So who you call, who you ask for support, if you question that, you're going to know if you're setting yourself up to get the answer you want to hear, or if you're actually getting the kind of support to get the answer you need to hear.
I think that's the question. I think the question that I have, and I really do you have people that you actually trust that are who constructively want you to succeed or want something to succeed that you're doing, such that they will give you honesty? So they will give you what they really think and how they really perceive something, whether or not it's something that you want to hear, and are you ready to hear it? I had a conversation last week with somebody who has an alcohol problem, and she acknowledged that she's got, I'm just using this as an example. She acknowledged that she's suffering from cognitive losses from it. Oh no, Anik ran away. I'm sorry, did I run her off?
No, I think she went to go get something.
Okay.
She's back.
So anyway, so the point is, and I looked her in the eyes and she said, I'm suffering from aphasia. I have a hard time recognizing people. And I looked her in the eyes and I said, what can you do that might slow this entire process down? And she said, I don't think it's bad enough yet for me to consider researching this and figuring it out. She said, I'm 74. I guess I could take now I'm blanking on it. Maybe I'm having an issue. I could take the medication for Alzheimer's, for dementia. And she said, I'm not demented yet. And I thought, if you get to the point where it's dementia, there's not much they can do. The entire thing is to slow down the process of getting done. She has made a decision. The decision is to continue drinking at the rate she's drinking. That is a decision. Okay. It's not one I'm comfortable with, and it's not one I'm comfortable being around. I'm not interested being in her space
Yeah.
like that. Okay.
Right.
I think I still love her dearly. I think she's a wonderful person, but that's not what I want. She didn't get what she wanted from me. And what I got from her was bare honesty. This is where she's at.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Yeah, I gave up drinking because my husband is an alcoholic and he gave up drinking, and so I just did that for him. So when I go out, I'll have a drink or two. But I found not only do I think clearer, but I live my life a little better. I'm more present, and I think that is a big thing, especially for my husband. And I notice in him a lot that he's a lot more present. He's there, So it's a shame, even at 74, that I would still think that someone would want to enjoy life to its fullest if you can.
Well, but again, it's also a question. This woman is 74. She is 4 feet 8 inches short. Okay. So she's like here. And she maybe weighs 90 pounds. And she drank a bottle of wine. Whenever she went to a dinner, social dinner, she took a bottle of wine with her. And she drank her own bottle of wine. And she largely on her own finished it. And then she had shots.
I can do that. Totally, I could do that.
Okay. But I think you're not doing lunch, then dinner, then lunch, then dinner,
No.
lunch, then dinner.
No, but
Okay.
that is a problem for me that I'm drinking. I can't, it's just like eating chocolate or something. It's like,
Oh.
I can't really stop. So I have to never start.
I have chocolate in my office, and I'm very careful about limiting that because if I start on that road, I will not stop. But again, it's a decision. I didn't want the answer she gave me, but I was receptive to
Right.
hearing it, and I heard it, and I acted on it, and I left. Okay, and I offended the living daylights out of her. Okay, but that's where I'm at, and so that's the whole thing. When it comes to business, having an accountant who knows my bottom line. Look me in the eyes and say, Monica, can you afford that? Okay. Like, is this something you want to spend your money on? Would you be better off spending your money on marketing? Would you be better off with those dollars in other places? That's not a comfortable conversation. He didn't want to have that conversation with me the way he did because he's like, look, you have other things you need to spend money on. You've invested in this, this, and this. You have to get a divorce. You have this. Having people who have that big picture thing, who are able to say that to you and being receptive to hearing it and processing it is the maturation process. You need to hear what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. You're
right. And you need someone like a Nick who really can, is going to deliver what you really need to hear, but in a way that is productive and has your best interests at heart. She's only looking out, looking for you. So Kristen, you had a comment?
Yeah, I really appreciate how we jumped to both the sides of like, needing help with one of our own decisions to also being in the support role of someone else's decision. And in that secondary role, which obviously it's kind of what I talked about a lot going through the system, kind of being mindful of, very few of us are driving the steering wheel all the time, and our body actually has an answer that can be very separate from what our spiritual or emotional answers are, and it's going to do what it's going to do. And being, mindful of like, sometimes someone is just looking for their answer to be justified, and now it's explicit. If this is a business relationship, it is obviously a very different matrix than if it is personal. I personally could take your route, Monica. She has conviction. I cannot condone it, so I will not be around it as the only sign of my behavior. I won't hate, I won't dislike, but I won't be a witness either. Enjoy the rest of your time. I won't try to sell you. But in business, when I come to a point where someone is basically arguing for their point, to me, I've always taken it as they really want it to be valuable, but they can't seem to justify that value internally, innately, and they need an outside source to validate it. Very often why people want to vent about their stresses just because they want another person to acknowledge that their reality is actually happening in it, and it's not just, they're not alone in that one. Mm-hmm. And more often than not, I always find that my goal is as a support to move someone forward. So if they have decided on their answer, as long as it's not specifically destructive to their greater goal, because going in, it is like, are we trying to increase our margin? Are we trying to increase the efficiency of our systems? There's always one massive outcome that will always underline our hows to our whats, because I don't want to argue over that. We can change it every quarter, but we're not changing it in the middle. But I immediately try to, okay, cool. This is where you want to be. I never condone, I never will agree. I think it is being very dishonest with someone when you just say yes because you don't want to disagree, and it's the first level of lying. But appreciating the fact that you can do that wrong in a lot of ways. So I try to really label, and I use a lot of the black swan methods to show them empathy, that I do really see how they feel the way they do feel, and I do not agree, and that has nothing to do with me. My mission is to move your mission forward. I do see how you feel the way you feel. Let's go. And like I said, if it's ultimately not destructive to the large goal, I just try to lean to, well, cool. How do we make this true? You know, someone's issue or whatever it is, there's always like an underlining, like, cool. What are we doing? What is the what's that? You know, is this a strategy question? Is this a tactics question? Is it an ethical question because the implications of your strategy you don't like? I mean, when we're talking about when someone's justifying something, it is all decisions. To just put a blanket statement like, how do you make a decision about what to do next? Well, what are we picking? What we're putting our socks this morning, or our marketing strategy for this year?